We're going to be talking about 12 must-start players from Week 7. We're going to go game by game, matchup by matchup, look at the game scripts, try to predict the flow of the game, where the fantasy points are going to be scored, and then come up with our must-start player from that game. Also, from that game script, we're going to talk about multiple players in that matchup. So overall, we're probably going to be talking about 40 or 50 players in this video that you could potentially start, maybe even sit, as we're just talking about the matchups from each game. With that being said, you need to click that subscribe button right now. Click it with your finger on your phone. Click it with your mouse on your computer. Whatever you need to do to get the job done. We're doing deep dives on the waiver wire every single day. We're helping you set those lineups. We're helping you win those trades and everything else. Click that subscribe button. Stop missing out. Let's look at our first matchup today. Detroit Lions at the Baltimore Ravens. Vegas has a 43 over-under, which means the implied point total is pretty low. Spread's pretty tight. I'm not really loving this matchup for fantasy production. Not just because Vegas is saying it. It just got that feel, especially with the Ravens defense being pretty stout. I can see this being a slower game script, especially with Detroit being on the road. I can see them having to pass it a good bit in this game, with the run game being stuffed a little bit. That being said, I look for this one to be very up and down. Only way it breaks is due to turnovers or a team just getting up early. That being said, Jahmyr Gibbs, he's coming back, he's practicing. We might have a progression funnel in the passing game to where they got to check it down a good bit to Jahmyr Gibbs. He's also kind of a sneaky start because he's not automatic. But I don't think there's very many automatic plays in this game. That is really my take. My takes in these videos are really about the game script, and then we're trying to guess from there because it's part of the process, and we preach process. Looking at the workload rates, looking at the matchups here, this matchup's not super juicy for either team. Jahmyr Gibbs, if he's back in the lineup. If he's not, then we're pivoting. But of course we're looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown. Of course we're looking at him. Maybe Jameson Williams catches a deep ball. Jahmyr Gibbs, if he's on the field, might be seeing extra targets in the passing game, as the run game is going to have a hard time getting going. A progression funnel, as Jared Goff has to go through his progressions and dump it off a few extra times in this game. That looks like a likely outcome. Run backs from the Ravens. Zay Flowers is getting a good target share. Could be getting some opportunity. This game script could break because both teams can push the ball, especially Detroit. And if Detroit can do it in a couple series, then the Ravens have to match up. Zay Flowers could be getting some targets. Mark Andrews, as always, because he's the alpha tight end in this offense, and you're always going to be looking at him, and he should be getting targets no matter what game script he's in. Now we're looking at the Falcons at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 37 over-under. That one could break, and that one could hit the over, or it could at least be a higher scoring game where we get some fantasy football contributors. We're looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had a lower scoring game with Detroit last week, but both teams almost hit 40 pass attempts. They were both throwing the ball because you cannot run on the Bucs. Kind of tough running on Atlanta as well. This one's going to be an interesting one because this game script could provide multiple fantasy contributors and still be low scoring just by the nature of these two offenses. I'm looking at Drake London. You can throw on Tampa Bay a little bit because they're kind of a pass funnel. And he's getting a large target share at 21.3%. Decent amount of air yards, 73 air yards per game. He's just getting opportunity running a lot of routes. You can throw in the Bucs a little bit. And if you can throw in the Bucs a little bit, that means the Bucs got to throw a little bit as well. So we could be seeing some fireworks in this game that accidentally comes out. And with the implied point total being kind of low, you might be able to get some cheap stacks here for DFS, FanDuel, DraftKings that has a low ownership rate that will help you out in tournaments. Runbacks, Mike Evans. He should be getting some deep balls. Chris Godwin, the usual suspects here. Watch out for Trey Palmer. Not a must starter, a guy you're starting, but we're watching his workload because he is getting the deep balls. Of course, you're starting Bijan Robinson. Of course, you're looking at Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith as tight ends here, even though you don't really trust tight ends, but you don't trust the tight end position anyways. Now we're looking at the Washington Commanders at the New York Football Giants. 37.5 over-under. These over-unders are low. We have 6 teams out on bye, and we're hitting this schedule up with a lot of low over-unders, a lot of low-scoring games. The Giants haven't been great, but with Saquon Barkley back, they've been able to move the ball, eat up some clock. The Commanders can score if they're pushed to do it in catch-up mode. They're probably not going to be able to. This could be an ugly game, and I could see that. That's really my prediction here. Terry McLaurin, start your studs in ugly games and just hope for the best. 7 targets, 21% target share. That's what we're looking at per game here. 36 routes a game. He's getting opportunity. He's getting air yards compared to some of the other wide receivers in this offense. They're not really getting air yards. Curtis Samuel's not. Jan Dotson's not. Dotson's being regulated to more special teams duty, as we saw from the clips from practice. Brian Robinson, too, he's been a hammer looking for a nail. And against this Giants defense, we could see that happening. Giants are giving up fantasy points to wide receivers. 36.7 PPR fantasy points per game. Saquon Barkley's back. He should be getting opportunity. Wan'Dale Robinson's been getting a good target share. But we're not trusting Giants. We'll trust Barkley, of course, because he's Barkley. But if you're looking for target share opportunities, Wan'Dale Robinson's a guy to look at as well. Now we're looking at the Bills at the New England Patriots 40 over under. We got another low one. This is an ugly week. If you need to go to the pumpkin patch this week and sip some coffee, allow your wife to take you this week, at least for the early slate, because these games aren't that good. 40 over under, low scoring game. We got a deep spread, though, at 9, as the Bills are expected to be up in this game. But looking at this, start your studs. Stephon Diggs, of course. We're not going to go heavy into him because he's getting all the targets. He's getting the air yards at 117 a game. Ramondre Stevenson, Kendrick Bourne. You could throw them in your lineup, but you're not really trusting them. Stevenson getting some opportunity, but Ezekiel Elliott's getting some run as well. They're kind of split, but a lot of people are hurting at running back because we got 6 teams out and we got a lot of running backs injured. Kendrick Bourne is getting opportunities in this offense. He's getting deep balls. Guy you need to look at. This is a game you really, really don't want to touch. You got Cook at running back for the Bills you may want to look at. This is a hard game to touch, though. This is a hard game to want to look at. You can run on the Bills a little bit. You can. The Patriots, though, they're kind of broken. They're slower, but they can be faster if the game script depicts it. But again, this is a hard game to want to start players from. Raiders at the Bears. 38 over under. Another low scoring one. Another ugly matchup. This is going to be an ugly week of football. This is going to be an ugly week for fantasy. That is my main take for this video. That being said, you start your studs. Josh Jacobs, Bears. So we're going to be looking at Tyson Bagent here for the Bears at quarterback, and the Raiders are going to be starting their backup. I hope it's Aiden O'Connell because I really want to see rookie-on-rookie violence in this game, and you're not trusting any Bears. I just want to throw that out when I talk about the run backs. You're not trusting any Bears. You're throwing up random Raiders. That's one thing, but you're still not trusting it. You don't know what we got at quarterback yet. They're probably going to make that decision on Saturday, maybe later today. DJ Moore, because he'll get targets. He's a candidate to get you some yak. Roshan Johnson not practicing yet. If he's practicing, if he's getting an opportunity, yeah, I'll throw him in. Yeah, I'll see what happens because there are a lot of running backs out this week. But this is a tough matchup for the Bears. This is going to be a tough matchup for both teams. This is going to be a tough matchup for fantasy. I see Jacobs getting a lot of touches, and I think everybody else is too. But really, you're staying away from this game. But kind of not, because we don't have that many matchups to pick through this week. Now we're looking at the Browns at the Colts, 40 over under. Another low-scoring affair here, predicted by Vegas. We're watching Deshaun Watson. Looks like he's going to be back. The Browns should be able to move the football a little bit better. Colts has Gardner Minshew, but it's going against that tough Browns defense who could slow things up a good bit. That being said, if Deshaun Watson's back, it's going to be Amari Cooper City. Deshaun Watson might sling a little bit more than anticipated. They might rely more on the run game, but you also got Elijah Moore there too. He's getting a lot of targets. Cooper's getting a 23.4% target share. Elijah Moore's got a target share of over 20%. The run backs, Michael Pittman is a guy you may want to look at because he is the alpha in the offense when it comes to target share. That's a player you may want to think about. Jonathan Taylor, of course, we should be seeing those touches ramp up. Zach Moss may be getting some opportunities. However, that defense is stout. It's going to be very hard to get fantasy production in this game. It's going to be lower scoring and slower paced. Now we're looking at the Cardinals at the Seahawks, 44.5 over under. So Vegas is saying, hey, this one might get you a little bit here in scoring. We might see some fantasy production. You can pass on Seattle, which is going to make the Cardinals interesting to watch. And we know Seattle's got some weapons there. So we're looking at Kenneth Walker because you can run heavy on the Cardinals. Think of Kyren Williams. He went off against the Cardinals in the run game. He rushed for well over 100 yards, had a big performance. Kenneth Walker's going to have another one. Zach Charbonnet, he's been on the mend, but if he's in the game, seeing opportunity, he's another guy that could score more points than predicted. Kenneth Walker seeing a 70.1% opportunity share, 18.8 touches per game. And then you're really looking at the run backs for the Cardinals here. Marquise Brown, deep ball city, against a secondary that gives up fantasy points to wide receivers. Michael Wilson runs a lot of routes, gets a lot of opportunity. Rondale Moore's targets have been increasing these last couple weeks as he's siphoning work from the running back since James Conner is out. He saw 7 targets last week, so he might see some short targets, and he's a yak guy. He's got 4.3 speed, so if he breaks one loose, you could have a big game, but he's not getting targets deep downfield, make it hard for him to score in fantasy, but if you need workload, he might be getting it. Now we're looking at the Steelers at the Rams, 43.5 over under, kind of a weird matchup. The Rams like to push the pace. They're down running backs. They may be throwing it more. And when you look at this matchup, you can see why. As the Steelers give 43 points per game to wide receivers, third most in the NFL. You have Puka Nacua. You have Cooper Kupp. Why not just sling the rock? Just have Matt Stafford drop back and throw it. If you can throw it at will, maybe they're going to test that out early. We may not see any of these running backs get enough volume to be productive. On the flip side, they may be up in this game, and they may be running it. Puka Nacua, of course. Cooper Kupp, of course. Run backs, George Pickens. But talking about the game script here, I expect the Rams to throw the ball. I expect them to do that, because why not? You have 2 very good wide receivers. You have Tutu Atwell. You have the weapons in the passing game to get you through, and just use the running backs as a supplement. We don't know which running back's going to hit. We'll know more after Friday's practice, and maybe a little bit of news leaking into Saturday. Look at Zach Evans, then look at the other running backs on the offense. Zach Evans, if he pops it first, then he might get a stranglehold of it. But look for this to be a mess with the running backs. Now we're looking at the Packers at the Denver Broncos. 45 over under in this matchup. That being said, A.J. Dillon, because you run the Broncos. Aaron Jones is limited. If he's in there seeing snaps, seeing workload, him too. But you're not going to trust it because he's been out for a good bit. I don't even trust A.J. Dillon, but who are you going to trust in this game? You want to start your Packers, though. You want to start your wide receivers here. You want to start Watson. You want to test out Reed. You want to test out Dobbs. You want to test out these players, especially with 6 teams out on bye. Run backs, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams. Just guys getting opportunity in this game. Lower scoring game, lower opportunity game here. You don't want to start a lot of players, but you know what? With a lot of teams out on bye, you're going to have to. Looking at the Chargers at the Chiefs, we have a nice one here. And it's about damn time looking at these matchups because it's really hurting our eyes. 48 over under. Expect lots of scoring. Expect pace. Expect a lot of fantasy contributors. You're starting everybody. You're starting everybody in this game because one thing, 6 teams out on bye. Then we just went over the other matchups here. We know how unsexy those are. Those are ugly games. We have a nice one here where you can really start everybody and feel good about it. Not all of them are going to hit, but the gamble here on those ancillary players might be better than the top players in a lot of those other matchups. Of course, you're starting Austin Eckler. Of course, you're starting Keenan Allen. Of course, you're looking at Josh Palmer. Of course, you're looking at Rashee Rice. Of course, you're looking at Pacheco. You're rolling Chiefs. You're rolling Chargers. Can we get some out Quentin Johnston? Can we? Can we do so? Maybe he comes a waiver wire pickup this week and we can talk about him some more. But we're really watching this game. Now we're looking at the Miami Dolphins at the Philadelphia Eagles. 52 over under. Another big matchup here later in the day. Dolphins at Eagles. Should be high scoring. Dolphins push the base. Eagles can keep up with it. They do have the weapons. So looking at this, you're starting everybody because of the same reasons from the last matchup We have 6 teams on bye. A lot of ugly matchups. A.J. Brown, of course. Devonta Smith saw 11 targets last week at over 150 air yards. DeAndre Swift's being used in the passing game. They're going to have to mount up the troops here. You're starting your Eagles. You're starting your Dolphins. And that's really all I need to say. Do I need to go into the names? Raheem Mostert, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, anybody seeing snaps, anybody running routes you're at least thinking about. Now it's the Niners at the Vikings. 44 over under. This one's going to be very interesting. The Vikings like to run at a fast pace, but they're going to be slower with Jefferson out, and we need more games of this to increase the sample size. That being said, the Niners are going to stuff this team. They're going to stuff this team. You're going to get some players here that's going to score fantasy points. Somebody might get you a little something. But again, the Niners are going to stuff this team. But Brandon Ayuk is going to have a big day because you can throw in the Vikings. We got Christian McCaffrey out. If you're going to be moving the chains, you're going to be moving it to your studs. Ayuk's been having a huge year, 30% target share, alpha-like, still being underrated for what he's doing. 116 air yards a game. Deep balls run rampant against the Vikings. Run backs, Jordan Addison, he may not have a huge game, but he's going to get huge opportunity. He ran 100% of the routes last week. Alexander Madison maybe across the goal line, catches some checkdowns as you got to progress against this defense because they're going to have it locked down. So you might see some extra targets in this matchup. Those are 12 must-start players for Week 7 on top of the other mini players that we covered from all the games this week. If you have lineup questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll get to them. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. I'll catch you on the next video.